The year was 2149. Earth had changed much since the early days of the 21st century. Cities reached higher into the skies, glowing towers of steel and glass standing like monuments of progress. The Moon and Mars had colonies filled with scientists, miners, and explorers. Humanity was preparing to push further, dreaming of ships that could sail beyond the solar system. Life was far from perfect, but for the first time in centuries, there was hope. Nations had learned to cooperate after climate disasters and old wars. Technology gave people clean energy, medicine that cured old sicknesses, and machines that built homes in days instead of years. Earth was recovering. The future looked bright, but all that changed one evening over the Pacific Ocean. The first sign was a streak of light in the sky. At first, people thought it was only a meteor. Children on beaches pointed at the glowing trail. Scientists at observatories leaned forward with curiosity. Even pilots flying near Japan reported a beautiful burning arc high above. Then came the second streak, and the third, and the 10th. One by one, the lights multiplied until the heavens looked as if they were filled with falling stars. But these were not falling, they stopped. They hovered. Alarms rang across observatories worldwide. Radar stations detected massive objects larger than any aircraft entering orbit. Governments scrambled, their secure channels filling with nervous voices. Within an hour, the truth became clear. The objects were ships, alien ships. The world held its breath. For centuries, humans had wondered if life existed beyond Earth. They had searched the skies with telescopes, sent signals into space, even dreamed of peaceful contact. Now the answer had come, but it was not the peaceful meeting they hoped for. Without warning, beams of light shot down from orbit. The first struck Honolulu. The city's power grid exploded, skyscrapers shattered, and the night sky glowed orange with fire. In seconds, one of Earth's most beautiful islands was burning. Another beam tore through Shanghai, silencing millions of homes in an instant. Sydney's harbor turned black with smoke. San Francisco shook as bridges crumbled. No message was sent. No demand was made. The strangers in the sky had not come to talk. They had come to strike. Panic swept across the planet. Families rushed into shelters. Governments called emergency meetings. Militaries scrambled jets, but they were useless against ships far above the clouds. Communication networks began to fail as satellites were destroyed. In Pakistan, a farmer stared at the burning sky and whispered prayers. In Brazil, children cried as sirens echoed through the streets. On the moon, colonists watched Earth's glow change to a wounded red. Everyone asked the same question, why? But the invaders gave no answer. The alien fleet was enormous. Later they would be called the Crothul Dominion, but on that night they were only shadows with burning weapons. They moved with precision, targeting cities, power plants, and defense stations. In their cold logic, they believed that if Earth was broken quickly, humanity would surrender. But the aliens did not understand humans. Inside an underground command center in Colorado, General Elena Ruiz watched the chaos unfold on giant screens. Her officers shouted updates: New York dark, London cut off, Tokyo under attack. Her heart ached, but her voice stayed firm. Activate the emergency network, she ordered. I want every surviving unit linked. Earth does not fall tonight. Across the world, others made the same choice. Firefighters dragged civilians from collapsing buildings. Doctors worked by candlelight when hospitals lost power. Engineers used old radio towers to send messages after satellites were destroyed. People refused to give up. In the middle of the Pacific, the crew of a damaged research vessel spotted something falling into the ocean, an alien drone. Risking their lives, they pulled it aboard. It was the first piece of alien technology captured by humans. They did not yet know it, but this single act would one day change the war. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Krathul commanders studied Earth. To them, humans were only another primitive species. Their databases showed humans had wars, divisions, and fragile technology. They expected quick victory, yet the resistance was stronger than predicted. Human aircraft, though unable to reach high orbit, still launched missiles at lower alien craft. Naval ships fired everything they had into the skies. Even small militias in rural towns organized defenses, refusing to run. The Krathul commanders grew frustrated. They saw humans not as weak prey, but as stubborn obstacles. Still, they pressed their attack, believing it was only a matter of time. Back on Earth, fear mixed with determination. In hidden shelters, families huddled together, whispering promises of survival. On Mars, miners sent a message to Earth. Hold on, help is coming. On the Moon, technicians prepared old defense cannons that had not been fired in decades. And in one quiet village in Africa, an old teacher told his students, "Remember this night. They came with fire, but one day you will tell your children how we answered." The first strike had been devastating. Thousands of lives were lost and many cities burned. Yet Earth was not silent. Instead of surrendering, humans began to fight in the only way they knew: together. As dawn rose over the wounded planet, smoke covered the horizon. The invaders believed the worst was over, but for humanity it was only the beginning. The people of Earth had been attacked without cause, without warning, without mercy. And if history had taught anything, it was this: when struck, humans did not stay down. They endured. They resisted. And in time, they struck back. That morning, as the sun climbed above the ruins of cities, a single message was transmitted through surviving networks. It spread across radios, old computers, even handwritten notes passed in underground shelters. It read, "We are still here." The aliens had made the first strike. But humanity, scarred yet unbroken, was preparing to make sure it would be their last. The smoke of the first strike still darkened the skies. Cities burned, families searched for loved ones, and silence fell over places once full of laughter. But humanity was not broken. Across the world, leaders, soldiers, and ordinary people began to rise. The Krathul Dominion, watching from orbit, believed the fight was nearly finished. Their ships circled Earth like vultures. Their commanders spoke in their strange language, certain that humans would surrender within days. They had done this before to other worlds. Why should Earth be different? But the Krathul had not studied the human spirit deeply enough. Unity in chaos in the mountains of Colorado, the United Earth Command was born. General Elena Ruiz stood in the command hall, her uniform stained with smoke from a collapsed building she had escaped only hours earlier. Around her, screens flickered with maps of the globe. Red zones marked devastation, green zones marked survivors. "Link all surviving nations," she ordered. "This is not a war of one country. This is a war of one species." Across the oceans, messages began to arrive. The European Defense Network responded. The lunar colonies sent coded signals. Even rival nations that had once refused to speak now answered the call. For the first time in history, Earth stood as one. On Mars, miners and engineers gathered in their domes. They had little weaponry, but their factories could produce machines quickly. Their leader, an old engineer named Haru Tanaka, sent a promise across space. "We will build for Earth. Every ship we own will become a weapon." The Moon's colony was smaller, but it had ancient defense cannons buried in its dusty soil. They were relics from an old war between humans, never used in decades. Now technicians worked day and night to restore them. They knew they might only fire once, but one shot could change the tide. Civilians become soldiers. It was not only armies that prepared. In every city, every village, ordinary people turned into fighters. In London, university students hacked alien signals using nothing more than old laptops. They discovered patterns in the invaders' communication, rigid, predictable, without emotion. They sent their findings to Earth Command, giving soldiers an advantage. In India, railway workers turned trains into mobile hospitals, carrying doctors across the countryside where hospitals were destroyed. In South America, farmers used drones meant for crops to scout alien patrols, sending information to militias hiding in the forests. Everywhere, humans refused to sit and wait for destruction. They fought back in their own ways, sometimes with weapons, sometimes with intelligence, sometimes with courage alone. The enemy's view high above. Inside the flagship of the Krathul Dominion, Commander Threx observed the resistance. His tall, scaled figure stood before a glowing map of Earth. His soldiers waited for his orders, certain of victory. But Threx frowned. "They should be broken," he muttered in his own tongue. "Their cities burn, yet they do not bow. They rise." Another officer replied, "They are only delaying the inevitable. No primitive race has ever defeated the Dominion." Yet doubt had already taken root in Threx's mind. Humans were unpredictable. When attacked, they did not scatter like other species. They gathered. They adapted. They became more dangerous. New weapons, new hope on Earth, captured fragments of alien machines were brought to secret labs. Scientists, engineers, and mechanics worked together. What they discovered shocked them. The Krathul relied heavily on technology but lacked creativity. Their weapons were powerful but inflexible. Dr. Amina Patel in Nairobi studied a broken alien drone. She found a weakness in its energy core, a flaw the aliens never corrected because no other species had ever exploited it. She sent her discovery to Earth Command, and within days, human missiles were modified to pierce alien shields. In orbit, pilots in old human spacecraft tested daring maneuvers, using speed and unpredictability to confuse the enemy. One pilot, Captain David Reyes, became famous after he destroyed 2 alien fighters, with nothing more than a damaged shuttle and clever flying. His victory gave hope to millions. On Mars, engineers combined alien plasma weapons with human railguns. The result was crude, unstable, and dangerous, but it worked. They called it the Thunder Lance, a cannon that could pierce even the largest alien cruisers. The spirit of resistance everywhere. Small victories lit sparks of hope. In Tokyo, survivors used underground tunnels to ambush an alien patrol, capturing their equipment. In Egypt, archaeologists hiding near the pyramids sent messages through ancient radio sets when modern satellites failed. In Nigeria, musicians gathered survivors in ruined streets, singing songs of unity that lifted hearts even in the darkest hours. These were not great battles recorded in history books, but they mattered. They reminded humanity that even against impossible odds, they were still alive, still fighting. The first human counterattack weeks after the first strike, Earth Command launched its first coordinated counterattack. It was not large, but it was symbolic. Using modified missiles and old fighter jets, humans struck an alien outpost over the Atlantic Ocean. The battle was fierce. Alien weapons tore through several jets, and many brave pilots never returned. But in the end, the outpost was destroyed. For the first time, alien fire rained into the ocean. For the first time, humans saw that the enemy could bleed. Across the world, cheers echoed in hidden shelters. The victory was small, but it was a beginning. The Krathul's mistake commander Threx grew impatient. "End this quickly," he ordered. "Increase strikes. Crush their spirits." But in doing so, the Krathul made a mistake. Their attacks grew more brutal, targeting not only armies but civilians. Entire villages were burned. Hospitals were destroyed. The aliens thought this would bring fear. Instead, it brought fury. Humans remembered old histories of invasions and empires, of times when their ancestors had been oppressed. And they remembered how those ancestors had fought back again and again until freedom was won. Now the whole species carried that memory. Now every human became a soldier in spirit. Whispers of the future. In a hidden bunker beneath Paris, scientists and generals gathered around a table. Maps were spread before them and alien weapons lay in pieces across the room. General Ruiz pointed to the skies. "They believe we are weak," she said firmly. "But we have something they do not." "What is that?" asked one of the scientists. She looked at the group, her eyes burning with determination. "We have imagination. We have unity, and we will show them that Earth is not theirs to take." Around the table, heads nodded. Plans were forming. Ideas grew. Humanity was preparing for something greater than survival. They were preparing to strike back. The gathering storm as the weeks passed, the storm grew stronger. The Krathul had begun the war with arrogance, believing Earth would be easy prey. But now they faced something they had never seen before. An enemy that refused to break. An enemy that turned every weakness into strength. Children carried water to soldiers. Farmers turned their fields into landing zones. Scientists worked without rest. Soldiers fought with fire in their hearts. Humanity was not only defending Earth, humanity was transforming. They were no longer many nations, many voices. They were one people, one world, one storm rising against the darkness, and in the silence of space watching the fires of Earth. Commander Threx finally understood a truth that filled him with unease. This was not the story of a simple conquest. This was the beginning of a war the Krathul might not win. On 1,300 words, simple English, third-person style. The war stretched into its third month. What the Krathul Dominion thought would be a quick conquest had turned into something far more difficult. Earth still burned, yes, but Earth still stood. Cities lay in ruins, but from those ruins rose fighters, thinkers, and builders. Humanity had not surrendered. Humanity had adapted. Lessons of fire. In the deserts of Arizona, a group of pilots trained with old jets painted black to hide in the night sky. Their commander, Captain David Reyes, the same pilot who had destroyed 2 alien ships with a damaged shuttle, watched them from the ground. "These machines are old," one pilot complained. Patting the wing of his jet, Reyes shook his head. "It doesn't matter how old it is. What matters is how you fly it. The aliens don't know how to expect the unexpected. That is our advantage." The pilots learned to dive low, skim the ground, and strike suddenly before vanishing. They became ghosts of the sky, always moving, always unpredictable. Elsewhere, scientists continued breaking apart alien technology. Dr. Amina Patel in Nairobi led a small team that studied a captured Krathul shield generator. They discovered that the energy it produced could be disrupted with certain frequencies. It was not easy, but it meant alien ships were not invincible. "We can't match their strength," Amina told her team. "But we don't need to. We just need to find the cracks." Those cracks, small at first, were widening. Resistance. Across the world in South America, resistance fighters learned to strike alien convoys moving through the Amazon. Using knowledge of the forests, they set traps that destroyed enemy machines. The Krathul had advanced weapons but poor understanding of Earth's terrain. In Eastern Europe, engineers built underground tunnels linking cities so people and supplies could move without being seen. In Asia, hackers attacked the Krathul's communication networks, confusing their coordination. In some battles, alien ships fired at one another by mistake, unable to tell friend from foe. These were not large victories, but they were victories. And with each one, human confidence grew. The alien strain on the Krathul flagship, Commander Threck studied reports with increasing frustration. Every day his officers brought news of new human attacks. "They are weak," one officer insisted. "They cannot win." Threck's claws tapped the edge of his console. "Weak? They were supposed to be broken months ago. Yet they fight. They learn. They change." He turned to the stars outside the viewport, his scaled face unreadable. "We cannot underestimate them any longer. Send more ships. Tighten the net. End this before they rise further." But it was already too late. Humanity had risen. The Mars contribution far from Earth, Mars became a forge of war. Factories and underground cities produced new weapons. Railguns modified with alien plasma cores. Armored suits built from Martian mining exoskeletons. And cannons known as Thunder Lances, Haru Tanaka. The old engineer, who had promised Earth his support, stood before one of the first Thunder Lances. The massive weapon glowed faintly with unstable energy. "It is dangerous," his assistant warned. "All powerful things are," Haru replied quietly. "But Earth needs this." When the first Thunder Lance was tested against a captured alien hull, it tore through the metal like paper. The scientists cheered, knowing Earth now had a weapon that could threaten even the largest Krathul ships. Battle of the Atlantic Skies. The true test came weeks later. The Krathul launched a fleet over the Atlantic Ocean, planning to cut communication between the Americas and Europe. Earth Command responded with everything it had: jets, missiles, and the first Thunder Lances shipped from Mars. The battle was chaos. Alien ships descended in perfect formations, their energy beams slicing through the sky. Human jets darted between them like insects, fragile but fast. Captain Reyes led the attack. "Keep moving. Don't give them an easy target," he shouted over the radio. A Thunder Lance hidden on a ship below fired its first shot. The glowing beam struck a Krathul cruiser, and to everyone's amazement, the massive vessel exploded. Cheers erupted across radios. The aliens retaliated, destroying many human craft, but the damage was done. For the first time, a major Krathul fleet was forced to retreat. The ocean boiled with wreckage, both human and alien. But Earth had held. The world heard the news. And hope spread faster than fire. The price of resistance victory, however, always came at a cost. In Paris, underground shelters overflowed with the wounded. Doctors worked without rest. In New Delhi, food shortages forced families to share a single meal for days. In South Africa, entire towns were evacuated under alien bombardment. General Ruiz watched casualty numbers climb on her screens. Every victory was bought with lives. Her heart grew heavy, but she refused to falter. "If we fall now," she told her officers, "then all who sacrificed will have died for nothing. We keep fighting. We keep adapting. That is how we win." Unpredictability. The Krathul relied on hierarchy, discipline, and strict orders. They believed this made them strong. But humans thrived in chaos. Soldiers made decisions on the ground. Civilians invented weapons from scrap. Hackers built traps out of broken computers. To the Krathul, this seemed like disorder. But in truth, it was creativity. And creativity was something they could not match. In one battle near Cairo, a group of human soldiers used mirrors to confuse alien targeting systems. In another near Mexico City, civilians used fireworks to lure alien drones into ambushes. Small ideas, but effective. The aliens grew frustrated. Their strategies, perfect in theory, failed against an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war. The shadow of the fortress, but the Krathul had plans of their own. Far above Earth, hidden among their fleet, they began constructing something new, a massive orbital fortress. It was larger than any ship humans had seen, armed with weapons capable of shattering continents. Commander Threx stood before the design. His officers bowed their heads in respect. "With this," Threx declared, "the humans will have no choice but to kneel. We will break their spirit once and for all." The humans did not yet know of this fortress, but whispers spread among spies and intercepted signals. Earth Command began to suspect something terrible was coming. The turning current. Despite looming threats, humanity had proven something undeniable. They could fight, and they could win battles. The war was no longer one-sided. The Krathul still had greater numbers, stronger ships, and advanced weapons. But humans had something far more dangerous: imagination, resilience, and unity born of survival. In hidden shelters, families whispered stories of victories. On Mars, workers hammered together new weapons with pride. On Earth, children painted walls with messages: "We are still here." The tide was beginning to turn. And Commander Threx, watching reports pile up, realized with unease that the war he had expected to end in days might last much longer. A storm was coming, one unlike anything the Dominion had faced before. The war had entered its darkest chapter. Earth had survived the first strikes, endured months of battles, and even won victories against the Krathul Dominion. But now a new shadow hung over the planet. High above the clouds, hidden among the alien fleet, the Dominion had been building something monstrous, a massive orbital fortress. It was called the Heart of Dominion, a station larger than any city on Earth, armed with weapons that could split continents and scorch oceans. The Krathul planned to use it as their final blow. If fired, Earth would not simply lose battles, it would lose its future. The fortress revealed itself one morning, sliding from behind the moon like a predator showing its fangs. Its surface glowed with thousands of lights. Towering cannons lined its sides and energy pulsed from its core. On Earth, millions looked up and saw the terrifying silhouette in the sky. Even in daylight, it was visible, a reminder that the enemy was ready to finish what they started. In the underground command center, General Elena Ruiz stood before her officers. Maps of the fortress rotated on the screen, collected from stolen data and scattered reports. "If that fortress fires," she said firmly, "Earth is finished. We cannot wait for them to strike. We must attack first." Her words sent silence through the room. Everyone understood what she was asking. To fight the fortress was to face certain death, but to do nothing was to lose everything. The plan was desperate, but desperation was all humanity had left. The lunar colonies would fire their restored defense cannons to weaken the fortress shields. Mars would send its new Thunderlances carried by modified freighters. Earth's surviving fleets would launch from hidden bases, striking fast and hard. And at the center of the plan, a small strike team would infiltrate the fortress itself. Their mission, destroy its core from within. Captain David Reyes volunteered immediately. "We've faced their ships, their weapons, and their numbers," he told General Ruiz. "But if we don't destroy that fortress, everything we fought for is gone. I'll lead the team." Beside him, Dr. Amina Patel stepped forward. "We need someone who understands their technology. If we get inside, I can find the weaknesses. I'll go too." Many others volunteered, soldiers and engineers alike. They knew the mission was almost impossible, but they also knew Earth's survival depended on it. The battle begins. The day of the attack arrived. Across Earth, people watched the skies with trembling hearts. Families held hands in shelters. Children whispered prayers. Soldiers wrote final letters. Then the heavens lit up. From the moon, ancient cannons fired beams of light that shook the fortress's shields. From Mars, freighters carrying thunderlances roared toward Earth's orbit. From hidden bases, swarms of human jets and shuttles launched into the sky. The Krathul fleet moved to intercept. Their ships blazed with energy, tearing through human formations. Explosions painted the darkness red and gold. Captain Reyes led his squadron through the chaos. "Stay close. Focus on the fortress," he shouted. His voice was steady, but inside he felt the weight of every life depending on them. Courage in the skies. The battle was fierce. Human ships fell one by one, but they fought with unmatched courage. Pilots rammed enemy craft when out of ammunition. Ground crews on Earth risked exposure to launch every last missile. Civilians even joined, using satellites and hacked drones to confuse alien targeting. One Martian freighter carrying a Thunderlance was struck and began to fall toward Earth. Instead of abandoning the weapon, the crew aimed the crashing freighter at an alien cruiser. The explosion lit the sky, destroying both ships. General Ruiz, watching from command, clenched her fists. "Every sacrifice will count," she whispered. Infiltrating the fortress amid the chaos, a small shuttle disguised with stolen alien plating slipped past the outer defenses. Inside were Reyes, Amina, and a team of soldiers. Their shuttle shook violently as it entered the fortress's docking bay. The moment the hatch opened, fighting began. Krathul's soldiers with glowing weapons stormed forward, but the humans moved quickly. Bullets and energy bolts clashed in the corridors. Reyes shouted, "Hold the line!" "Amina, find the core!" Amina ran through the corridors with 2 soldiers covering her. She carried a small device of her own design, built from scraps of alien technology. If connected to the core, it would overload the fortress's energy system. The core, they reached the heart of the fortress. It was a massive chamber filled with a glowing sphere of energy, pulsing like a giant heartbeat. Alien engineers worked frantically at consoles, trying to keep the battle outside under control. Amina's eyes widened. "This is it." "Cover me!" She ran forward, attaching her device to the cables near the core. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the energy sphere pulsed faster. The Krathul engineers shouted in alarm. Reyes and his soldiers fought fiercely, holding the enemy back. He could feel the heat of the core against his skin, could hear the humming of the fortress as if it were alive. "Amina, how long?" he shouted. 2 minutes, she replied, her hands moving quickly. The sacrifice outside, the battle raged on. Human ships were nearly gone, but the fortress's shields were weakening. Thunderlances tore holes into its armor. The moon's cannons fired until they overheated and fell silent. Commander Threx, on the bridge of his ship, watched with disbelief. How can they fight like this? They should be broken. Back in the core chamber, the device was ready. Amina pulled back, breathing hard. "It's set, but someone has to keep it stable until it detonates." Reyes looked around at his team. Each face was tired, wounded, but determined. He knew what had to be done. "I'll stay," he said quietly. "No," one soldier argued, but Reyes raised a hand. "This is my duty. Get out, all of you. Earth needs you alive." Amina's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. The others obeyed, retreating toward the shuttle. Reyes stood before the glowing core, his weapon ready. Krathul's soldiers stormed into the chamber, but he fought them back. Holding the line alone as the device hummed louder and louder. The explosion. The shuttle carrying Amina and the others raced out of the fortress just as light erupted behind them. The core overloaded. A brilliant explosion tore through the fortress, spreading outward like a sunburst. The entire structure cracked, then shattered into pieces. Fire and debris filled the skies. On Earth, people saw the fortress burning. Cheers erupted from shelters and ruins alike. The impossible had happened. The great weapon of the Krathul was gone, but Captain David Reyes did not return. His name, along with many others, became a symbol of sacrifice. The Krathul fleet, shocked and leaderless, began to retreat. Commander Threx gave the order with bitterness in his voice. For the first time in Dominion history, an invasion had failed. On Earth, General Ruiz stood tall as the news reached her. "We are not finished," she said. But today we prove the truth. Humanity will not bow. The last gamble. The fortress had been destroyed. The battle had cost countless lives. Cities were gone, families torn apart, heroes lost. But humanity had survived. And in surviving, humanity had done more. They had changed the balance of power. The Krathul had struck first. They had believed Earth would fall easily. Instead, they had awoken something far greater, the unyielding will of humankind. As the smoke cleared from the skies, a single message spread once again through every surviving network. Every colony, every bunker, we are still here. And now, the galaxy would never forget it. The remnants of the Krathul fleet limped away from Earth, their once proud ships scorched and shattered. Commander Threx, his pride wounded and his mind racing, could not understand it. How had such a primitive species resisted so fiercely? How had they destroyed the fortress that was supposed to end everything? High above the solar system, the aliens held council. Plans for new strikes were discussed, but hesitation spread among the Krathul. Their intelligence systems, hacked and tampered with by humans, reported every loss, every trick, every unpredictable move. The Dominion realized something they had never expected. Humans were not just survivors. They were dangerous, clever, and united. Earth rises on the ground. Earth was scarred, but alive. Cities lay in ruins, yet the people stood. Smoke and dust hung in the air, but sunlight pierced through, revealing streets where children now played amid rubble, where neighbors rebuilt together, and where survivors told stories of heroism. General Elena Ruiz walked through the streets of New York, observing the reconstruction. Soldiers and volunteers worked side by side. Engineers repaired broken power lines. Civilians cleared debris and rebuilt homes. Every corner of Earth reflected a single truth. Humanity would not only survive, it would endure. The Moon and Mars sent ships to aid in rebuilding. Weapons that had saved lives were now used to clear debris and deliver supplies. Every human colony felt the victory. Every human understood that survival had come at a cost, yet it had proven their strength. Remembering the heroes' names of the fallen were recited worldwide. Captain David Reyes, who had sacrificed himself to destroy the fortress, became a symbol of courage. Dr. Amina Patel, engineers, soldiers, and even ordinary civilians were honored for their ingenuity and bravery. In London, survivors gathered around a memorial built in the ruins of the city's university. They hung banners reading, "Courage never dies." In Nairobi, children planted trees in honor of those who had given their lives. On Mars, miners held a silent ceremony before resuming work on the Thunder Lances, now peaceful tools. Though grief remained, there was hope. Humanity had learned that sacrifice was part of survival, and that together nothing was impossible. The Krathul retreat, the alien fleet, broken and humiliated, withdrew toward distant systems. Threx issued a message to all Krathul fleets. Never strike Earth again. The humans are more dangerous than we believed. The message spread through the galaxy like a warning. Other species watched. Observers recorded the resistance, noting how humans had survived attacks far beyond their predicted limits. Humanity was no longer a small, fragile race. They were now a force to be respected, a species that could not be conquered easily. In secret, some Krathul commanders whispered doubts. If humans had destroyed one fortress, what could they do next? What other surprises did Earth's people have? The Dominion would never make the first strike on Earth again. A new era begins. As the Krathul faded into the stars, humanity looked forward. The war had shown them both the fragility and strength of life. Technology had been important, but courage, unity, and imagination had been more powerful than any weapon. Leaders from Earth, Mars, and the Moon gathered in a historic assembly. For the first time, human colonies and nations acted as one. Plans were made to strengthen defenses, improve communication, and explore the stars, not for conquest, but to ensure the safety of every human life. Children listened to stories of the battles, learning not only about war but about resilience. Scientists studied alien technology not to destroy, but to build better tools for life. Engineers designed cities that could survive disasters, both natural and alien. Human creativity and courage, every victory had come from unexpected actions. Pilots had flown through impossible odds. Engineers had created weapons from scraps. Civilians had hacked systems to protect cities. And ordinary people had become heroes in ways no one had imagined. General Ruiz often spoke to young cadets. Remember this: the galaxy may test you, but your courage, your mind, and your unity are what will protect you. Technology alone cannot save you. Humanity must save itself. Even centuries from now, the stories of these battles would teach future generations that human creativity, adaptability, and bravery are unmatched. That a species so small in one galaxy can stand tall against any challenge. A warning to the galaxy humanity did not celebrate recklessly. They knew other species watched. They knew the Krathul would return someday, or other threats might appear. But they had learned a vital lesson. Earth would never be prey. Signals were sent into deep space, messages encoded with both warning and pride. Earth is defended. Humanity is united. Any who strike first will regret it. The galaxy began to whisper about the humans who survived the impossible. Stories spread from one star system to another. Observers from distant worlds recorded everything: the clever traps, the daring pilots, the powerful weapons, and the courage of ordinary civilians. Humanity's reputation had changed forever. Rebuilding and unity on Earth, rebuilding began in earnest. Cities were planned with safety in mind. Old technologies were combined with new discoveries from captured alien equipment. Roads, bridges, and buildings were reconstructed stronger than before. In the countryside, farms produced more food than before the war, using techniques learned from Mars and lunar colonies. Water systems were restored. Education became a priority, as leaders realized that knowledge, courage, and creativity were the most important tools for survival. Communities celebrated each small victory. Children laughed in the streets, playing games that honored the bravery of their parents and grandparents. Artists painted murals of battles won and heroes lost. Musicians composed songs of hope, resilience, and human strength. The legacy of the strike years later, historians would look back at the first alien attack and call it a turning point. Humanity had been tested like never before. They had faced a force far stronger, more advanced, and merciless, and yet they had survived. The Krathul never returned. Other civilizations learned quickly that striking Earth first was a mistake. Humanity had made it clear. Any first strike would be their last, but the humans themselves did not grow arrogant. They remembered the cost of the war, the lives lost, and the sacrifices made. Their strength lay not only in power but in humility, intelligence, and the willingness to stand together. A galaxy watching from distant systems, alien civilizations studied humans carefully. Some feared them, some respected them, and some sought friendship. Humans had proven they were more than conquerable. They were clever, adaptable, and united. Explorers and diplomats prepared to reach out, not with weapons, but with knowledge, culture, and courage. Humanity had learned that true power came from imagination, unity, and the strength to protect what you love. A final message, and on Earth generations later, children still whispered the same words their parents and grandparents had repeated during the darkest days. They made the first strike on Earth, but we made sure it was their last. Those words were a reminder, a warning, and a promise. Humanity would face challenges and the galaxy would test them again, but the story of survival, courage, and unity would guide them forever. Humanity had learned the greatest lesson. No matter how dark the skies, no matter how strong the enemy, the human spirit would shine brighter than any weapon, stronger than any fortress, and more enduring than the stars themselves. Epilogue. The skies cleared. Earth, though scarred, thrived. Mars and the moon prospered. Humanity had been tested to the limit and had passed, and the galaxy, once full of doubt and underestimation, now knew the truth. Humans were not merely survivors. Humans were a force of nature. A species that, when threatened, would unite, adapt, and endure. The first strike had been made on Earth, and for the Krathul Dominion, and any other who might have dared, it had indeed been the last.